Nick Cannon just sat up here on The Breakfast Club confessing that his 12 children with multiple women was a trauma response to losing Mariah Carey. He's expressing regret about the whole situation. We're talking about a complete 180 from the man who used to brag about his fertility, explosive revelations about his mental state, and admissions that could change everything we thought we knew about his baby-making spree. Now, let's break it down. Nick Cannon has 12 children with 6 different women, making him one of the most prolific celebrity dads in Hollywood. His baby-making timeline has been wild. He had twins with Mariah Carey in 2011. Then, after their divorce, he went on an absolute spree, having babies with multiple women, sometimes just months apart. The list includes children with Brittany Bell, Abby De La Rosa, Bree Ticey, Lanisha Cole, Alyssa Scott, and most recently with model Salita Ebanks. For years, Nick has been defending his choices, saying he was just spreading love and that all his children are wanted and loved. He's made jokes about his situation on his talk shows, posted about being a fertile king, and seemed to embrace the chaos of managing multiple baby mamas and child support payments. The internet has been making memes about Nick's reproductive habits for years, and he appeared to enjoy the attention. But now, in a shocking new interview, Nick is revealing that this whole situation wasn't about love or choice. It was about trauma. He's claiming that his decision to have so many children was actually a psychological response to losing his marriage with Mariah Carey, and he's expressing regret about how everything unfolded. This revelation is completely changing the narrative around Nick's personal life and raising serious questions about his mental health during those years. But this was just the beginning of the most explosive celebrity confession we've heard all year. Nick's confession is absolutely mind-blowing. In this new interview, he's revealing that after his divorce from Mariah Carey in 2016, he went into what he's calling a destructive spiral that led to his pattern of having children with multiple women. Looking back, I can see that having all these babies was a trauma response to losing my family with Mariah, Nick revealed. I was trying to fill a void, trying to recreate what I lost, but I was doing it in the most chaotic way possible. The most shocking part is his admission that he wasn't thinking clearly during those years. I was in therapy, I was struggling with depression, and instead of dealing with my issues, I was creating more complications. Every time I felt empty, I thought having another baby would fix it. Nick is now saying that he regrets putting his children and their mothers through the chaos of his unresolved trauma. These women deserved better than being part of my healing process. My kids deserved a father who had his act together, not someone using them as emotional band-aids. The internet is going absolutely crazy over these revelations. People are reacting with everything from shock to sympathy to anger. Some fans are saying they always suspected something deeper was going on, while others are frustrated that he's only now acknowledging the problems with his choices. The most intense reactions are coming from people discussing the impact on his children. Comments like, "Those kids are going to read this someday," and "Imagine finding out you are a trauma response," are flooding social media. And then it got even more controversial when Nick started talking about the financial and emotional toll. Here's where Nick's confession becomes even more explosive. He's revealing that the financial pressure of supporting 12 children is crushing him, and he's struggling with the emotional reality of not being able to be the father he wants to be to all of them. "I'm paying millions in child support, working constantly just to keep up, and I barely have time to actually be present with my kids," Nick admitted. "I created this situation where I'm financially supporting everyone, but emotionally available to no one." But the real bombshell came when he talked about his relationship with Mariah and how this all connects to their divorce. "Mariah was my everything. When that marriage ended, I felt like I lost my identity as a husband and father. Instead of processing that grief, I went out and tried to be a father to as many kids as possible." The most shocking revelation is that Nick claims he's now seeking intensive therapy to deal with what he calls his reproduction addiction. He's allegedly working with mental health professionals who specialize in trauma responses and compulsive behavior. I realize now that I was using these women and these pregnancies to avoid dealing with my real issues. That's not fair to anyone involved, especially not the children who didn't ask to be born into this chaos. Nick also revealed that some of his baby mamas are frustrated with the situation too. Not all of these relationships ended well. Some of these women feel used, and they have every right to feel that way because that's essentially what happened. Because this wasn't just about having a lot of kids. This was allegedly about a man using reproduction as a coping mechanism for unresolved trauma and depression. And you know the internet had something to say. Some people are showing sympathy for his mental health struggles and praising him for finally being honest about his issues. Comments like, "At least he's taking accountability now," and "mental health is real, glad he's getting help," are getting support. But others are furious about his revelations, especially people defending his children and their mothers. Those kids are going to grow up reading that they were trauma responses. How damaging is that? One person posted. Another wrote, "These women and children deserve better than being called mistakes from his healing journey." The baby mamas themselves are reportedly having mixed reactions. Some sources say they're frustrated that Nick is now publicly calling their relationships and children a trauma response, while others are relieved that he's finally acknowledging the chaos he created. Mariah Carey hasn't responded publicly, but fans are flooding her social media with support. Many are saying things like, "You dodged a bullet, Mariah," and "Thank God you got out when you did." Mental health advocates are having complex reactions. Some are praising Nick for being open about trauma responses and seeking therapy, while others are concerned about how his public confession might affect his children's mental health. The financial aspect is also causing debate. People are discussing whether Nick's massive child support obligations are fair, given that he now admits the pregnancies were impulsive decisions driven by mental health issues. Child psychology experts are weighing in too, with some expressing concern about how Nick's children will process learning that their existence was tied to their father's unresolved trauma. Do you think Nick deserves credit for finally being honest about his issues? Or is this confession too little too late for the women and children involved? This confession is exposing some serious issues about celebrity culture, mental health, and how unprocessed trauma can affect entire families. Nick's situation shows how someone can appear to be living their best life while actually spiraling out of control. The implications for his 12 children are huge. These kids are going to grow up knowing that their father publicly described their conception as a trauma response. The psychological impact of that knowledge could affect them for life, especially as they get older and understand the full context. The financial burden is also staggering. With millions in child support obligations, Nick is essentially working to pay for decisions he now says he regrets. This creates a cycle where he has to keep taking jobs and making money to support a family structure that he admits was created from dysfunction. This situation is also highlighting how the entertainment industry often celebrates destructive behavior as long as it's entertaining. For years, Nick's baby-making was treated as a joke or a flex when it was apparently a sign of someone struggling with serious mental health issues. The impact on the women involved is significant too. Several of them entered relationships and had children with someone who now admits he wasn't emotionally available or mentally healthy. They're essentially co-parenting with someone who used them as therapy. This could change how we look at other celebrities who have unusual family situations. It raises questions about when personal choices become concerning patterns and how the public should respond to what might be cries for help disguised as lifestyle choices. Legal experts are also discussing whether this confession could affect custody arrangements or child support obligations. If Nick was mentally unstable when making these decisions, does that change his legal responsibilities? The broader conversation about men's mental health is important here too. Nick's story shows how trauma can manifest in ways that seem positive or successful on the surface, but are actually destructive underneath. And with 12 children who will eventually be old enough to understand all this, the long-term consequences of this confession are just beginning. At the end of the day, Nick Cannon's shocking confession about his 12 children changes everything we thought we knew about his personal life. What looked like a successful man living his best life was actually someone using reproduction as a way to cope with unresolved trauma from his divorce. While it's positive that Nick is finally seeking help and taking accountability, the damage to his relationships and potentially to his children's psychological well-being may already be done. His confession raises complex questions about responsibility, mental health, and the long-term consequences of using other people to heal your own wounds. Do you think Nick Cannon deserves credit for finally being honest about his trauma and seeking help? Or is this confession too damaging to the women and children involved? Should celebrities be more careful about how their mental health struggles affect others? Or is this the kind of honesty we need more of? How do you think his 12 children will feel about learning they were trauma responses when they're old enough to understand? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell because this story is definitely going to have more developments as Nick continues his therapy journey and as his children get older and start processing this information. This confession is just the beginning of a much larger conversation.